Welcome to the Meat Block Podcast. I'm Travis, American Butcher, and if you're here, you're a meathead, or you're a future meathead. If this is your first time listening, I just want to say welcome. We embrace you. You're one of us. And if you stumbled across this podcast and you say, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about, this is the Meat Block. This is a weekly podcast where we take a topic in the meat industry, be it a cut or stories or processing, slaughter, who knows, and we go into it in detail. And this is our New Year's episode. 2017 is coming to a wrap, and we talk about what we're thankful for, what we're looking forward to. And at the end, you get to hear a brainstorming session where David, Ryan, and myself talk about future episodes we want to do. So sit back and enjoy the Meat Block Podcast.
Good cutting enhances the quality of good meat. In his way, the meat cutter is an artist. Poor cutting results in an inferior piece of meat, regardless of quality.
New Year's Eve. New Year's. When I was younger, I would spend my New Year's Eve getting faced at a bar, scouring the room, looking for that lucky lady to share that midnight kiss with me. Then on New Year's Day, waking up with a fresh hangover and regret of the bad decisions I made the night before. I would convince myself that the next year is going to be better. I was going to get my shit together, straighten out my life, quote unquote, settle down like many people would describe it. Before I would wash my face or get rid of the geo sticking out of my nose, I would open up a can of black-eyed peas, and like a hobo from the 1920s, I would eat it cold with a spoon while sitting on my couch. Every New Year's Day of my life, I eat black-eyed peas in some form or another. That part of my life was years ago. I'm lucky if I make it to midnight on New Year's Eve. But one thing I continued to do was eat black-eyed peas. Now, luckily, my wife does not settle for the canned variety. She also questioned why I did this. What is the tradition from? What does it symbolize? And I didn't know. So I decided to look it up. And what I found was it's a southern dish made with usually bacon or a ham hock or back fat and served with hot chilies, prepared and flavored with vinegar. But why do people eat black-eyed peas? Now there's two origin stories, and one of them may be true. The first one is General William T. Sherman. His march of the Union Army to the sea during the Civil War pillaged the Confederate food supply. The story says that the peas and salt pork were left alone because the Union Army thought that they were animal feed and unfit for human consumption, therefore leaving it for the starving Confederate soldiers, who considered themselves lucky to have something to eat. Another origin story is that it was not the Confederate soldiers who made it a tradition, but it was the former slaves of the South who were officially freed on New Year's Day after the war. And the black-eyed pea was a symbol of good luck and emancipation. Now there is two wildly different origin stories. So if you eat black-eyed peas, knowing this in the future, I hope you do it for the right reasons. Here's Ryan.
It's almost the first of the year, and I'm having one of those moments where I reflect on my life and my career. The USDA cut shop and mobile truck I work on are winding down, slowing down for the season. By most measures, the production season is over. The pace will crawl along through the winter with a lot of deep cleaning and accessory projects to give employees hours until the spring when farmers start scheduling more kill dates. Where I sit now as a butcher is surreal to me. Sometimes it feels like a dream that I'll one day wake up from. The skill I've acquired at this point in my career, though far from mastery, still I never in my wildest dreams thought I would actually attain this level of skill set. I never thought I'd actually arrive at competency in this profession. Not for lack of trying, mind you. I brought every ounce of earnestness and work ethic to the table at every stage of this journey. But still, I was always aware that life is non-linear and things happen that derail progress. You never know how far life will let you take something, anything. At a certain point, it's out of our control, and we're along for the ride. Even now, this could be as far as the universe lets me go. Tomorrow I could have an accident that would end my career, an accident that would make it so I could never hold a knife again. This possibility is real, and every day I attempt to remember this. How rare and fleeting life is. How everything that it currently is will change in ways I never could have foreseen. This is the only certainty. The path that's led me to where I currently sit has had many milestones, many twists and turns. In my youth, I wanted nothing more than to immerse myself in outdoor physical labor jobs, commercial fishing boats, livestock crews, landscaping crews. In the off-season from this work, I put myself in butcher shops. Butchering was interesting, but it was an afterthought for me. Rob Levitt of Butcher and Larder in Chicago brought whole animal butchery into my view as a young man. The Chicago I grew up in was all about the big box grocer. The corner mom and pop butcher shops had disappeared decades before. The stockyards and Chicago carcass butchers were just stories grandparents told to their grandkids. The stories were like a mythology, but far removed from modern life. It was Rob Levitt of Butcher and Larder that brought whole animal butchery into my view. I went to his pig breakdown classes at his old restaurant and studied his every move. He was my first butcher hero. He still is. I worked in more grocery store meat shops. I got serious about learning meat cutting. But how to get the repetitions? No one wanted to teach me. They wanted me to play counter help and cleanup kid, nothing more. Maybe after 5 years of doing that, someone might put a knife in my hand. I didn't know how to play the game. A poultry buyer position came open one day at the meat shop I was at, and the meat manager told me, off the record, the position was mine. This was my big break to show that I could take on responsibility and do a good job. My boss ended up giving the position to someone else and denying his promise to me. I got discouraged. Trust had been broken. Another closed door. So I gave up on being a career meat cutter. I got out of the industry. Though my interest in butchery was still real, so I decided to pursue it as a hobby. I made a firm resolve that if no one else would teach me, I would teach myself. I started buying whole pigs and sides of beef direct from nearby farmers, breaking them down in my garage at home. I used every book available on the market and watched every video out there. From this, I developed my own relationship with the material. No one could take this away from me. Out of left field, doors started opening for me, and before I knew it, I was once again on the career butcher path. I never could have predicted this, and I'm still surprised today at how butchery laid a path before me to follow. I have nothing but gratitude. I'm not going to lie. Most people in this industry that I've worked with are shitty, spiteful, self-centered human beings who wanted to squash me and everyone else around them for their personal gain. I've gotten familiar with how to behave around these types of people. But then there are the diamonds in the rough, the truly remarkable individuals, brilliant, talented, and generous, who have seen potential in me and decided to help me. Rob Levitt was my first hero. He was kind to me and pointed me in the right direction. I'm lucky to say I have many, many more heroes in addition to him now. Travis is my hero. He's lighting the world on fire with his passion and devotion to the meat industry. He's a community organizer and a powerful rallying force for butchers worldwide. He got me my current job and was rooting for me long before we even met in person. David is my hero. He has a rare caliber of mind, an attention to detail, and an intelligence I could never dream of possessing. He does it all. He manages processing facilities. He raises animals. He designs menus for restaurants and breaks carcasses. I have heroes on YouTube, guys I will never meet who work in third world breaking plants and showcase a skill set higher than anything I could ever hope to achieve in this life. Brian Mayer is my hero. He has taught and influenced a whole generation of American butchers. Adam Danforth forever changed the landscape of butchery literature with his books. There are so many powerful and wonderful characters in this global butchery community. The landscape is rich with butchers who want to support others and uplift each other. At Polished Gun on Instagram is the definition of support and upliftment. So is at Darren O'Rourke, at E.D. DeSanti, at Patrick Demps, at Grass Finish Greg, at All Things Meat, at Mostly Wild and Free, at Shortloin, at Rocky Red 86. There's too many of these guys to count. This is the side of the industry I'm most interested in highlighting. The kind and generous side, the honorable side. Skilled meat industry workers that want to connect, dialogue, and lift each other up. It's almost 2018. It's been a good run. I'm honored to be part of this Meat Block podcast and to be able to record myself saying dumb shit and thereby make Travis and David look smarter. This is a rare privilege. I have high hopes for the future, and I'm excited to see how the path unfolds from here. Happy New Year's.
When I worked retail, Thanksgiving until the first of the year was a fucking nightmare. I didn't survive that long in retail. I discovered I am more of an introvert, and I don't really genuinely like dealing with people who are struggling to make the perfect day for their family. Everyone's stressed. They're stressed. And my overall demeanor is fake pleasantness. I was working a whole carcass shop, and we started hoarding rib exports that we were breaking sometime in November. We were just stockpiling them so we could fill our Christmas orders. So some of the exports were aged about 6 weeks. And we're cutting them also, not at 7 bones, but at 8 bones, getting 1 bone off the chuck to make them a little bit bigger. We called up old apprentices to help out. And without being arrogant, it's safe to say I was the best butcher who worked there. Everyone was expected to work long hours, well over 12. I would get there around 6 in the morning, help set up the case, and then help fill orders. And this was my routine until Christmas Eve. The owners of the company said I could sleep on their couch several weeks before the rush because I was recently new in town and didn't really know anyone. I just moved from Vermont to Los Angeles and was currently staying at my grandmother's house in Valencia and commuting to West Hollywood. Anyone from California or Southern California will know that is a bad drive. I don't need to go into details about how terrible it was, but it was certainly not pleasant. A Californian saying that traffic is something that you're used to, in my opinion, is like someone who's on the East Coast who doesn't complain about how cold it is. When they may say something like, this isn't traffic, I used to live in LA. Or someone on the East Coast would say, this isn't cold, my parents are snowmen. So anyway, it was a long fucking drive. Now my Grandma Juanita Pifilla Lopez Stockstill, that is her real name. And it's safe to say, with a name like Juanita Pifilla Lopez, that she is from Spanish descent. Now, Valencia is a very nice community. My grandmother lived most of her life in San Pedro and Wilmington, next to Harbor City, which was supposed to be the new Beverly Hills back in the 1950s until they discovered oil there. With oil money coming in and people buying up mineral rights, that part of Los Angeles slowly changed into lower income, where crime was not uncommon. It was a community where you would see bars on the doors and windows. It is also the city that both of my parents were born and raised in. Now, my grandma, having lived in a place like this for a very long time, then recently moving to Valencia, she was still scared that people were out to get her. So if I was not home, let's say at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock without calling, she would lock the door and wedge a chair underneath it and not answer it for nobody. My grandma also had my grandfather's M1 grant, and I was always convinced if I came home past 11 and that chair was underneath the door that she was going to shoot me. So I was delighted when the owners of the shop told me I could sleep on their couch during the busy season, knowing that 12-hour days were most likely in my future. I was never particularly liked by the owners of the shop. They had a failing business and expected someone with no transfer of training to step in and fix 3 years of being in the black or the red. I always forget which one's the bad one. In the first late night of the Christmas season, around 11 o'clock, the owners left, went home, and failed to invite me. Not knowing what to do, I knew my friend Tom Bodette would leave the light on for me. And I stayed at a Motel 6 in West Hollywood. And I can tell you, if those sheets can talk, they wouldn't shut the fuck up. And I discovered, even if you pay for parking online, and you get there around 2 in the morning, and there still is a parking attendant, there is not guaranteed to be a spot for you. I was back at the shop at 6 in the morning the next day. Exhausted, filling orders, and also running the counter, I stayed another late night, me and one other person, a former apprentice, who currently is not in the butchering industry, but does amazing stitch work. Rushed and overtired, around 1 in the morning, I shut my finger in the walk-in door and broke it. 2 days before Christmas Eve. It was on my dominant hand. It was my pinky, not the most useful finger. If I was younger, I would perhaps suggest cutting it off so I could continue working, but this was not the option. After seeing medical professionals and them confirming indeed that it is broken, and drilling a hole through the nail to drain the blood, I went back to my Motel 6. The hotel, or motel, hotel everybody, was right there in downtown West Hollywood, right on Hollywood Boulevard. It was never quiet. I slept with earplugs and a blindfold on. Although my second night there, I ended up having a better night's sleep with my newly found narcotics as a result of my broken finger. I worked the counter until New Year's. I was useless besides counter help, and even then people didn't want me wrapping their food with some disgusting fucking splint on. I still stayed there late, helping out the best I could, but was seen more as someone in the way and more of a nuisance than anything. Luckily, the shop was closed the first week of the year. It was a mad dash, getting ready for New Year's Eve, and then once 7 o'clock struck, we were free from that place for 7 days, which meant that New Year's Day was a unique day for the case. Knowing we didn't have anything to hold over, a lot of the butchers started putting things in the case that they just wanted to take home, hoping they wouldn't sell. During that 7-day break, I did a lot of reflecting. I decided I no longer wanted to work retail, that I wanted to do everything I could to get back into the processing game. I ate my black-eyed peas and decided that the next year was going to be better. It was. I started dating my wife. I got a great job in San Diego that eventually got me my job where I live now. As a result of meeting my wife, I have a beautiful son, and I have a career that people think I'm decent at. So, like I said in other episodes, no matter how shitty things are, it's not permanent. No matter how dark it is, eventually the sun will come up. And as you're sitting in traffic, waiting to go to a place you hate, eventually you will be driving home the other direction. Here's David.
Happy holidays, everyone. It's December 26th, and you're overstimulated from the combination of the previous work week. Combined with all of the family or friend gatherings in the last 48 hours. You're still full, and most likely you're feeling that 15th mug of eggnog that you had over at your Aunt Esther's house the night before. The shop's dead, and you have all this leftover product from the holiday that were either A, never picked up, or B, were maybe over-ordered, only in the interest of not getting caught off guard by this one customer who's going to come in and want one of your normal products that you have. In Seattle, we once had this customer come in 2 weeks before Christmas, and this guy was totally jacked, high as hell from holiday spending. I mean, he just came in from running all over town and getting the perfect thing for everyone, and now he was going to buy his contribution to the holiday dinner, which was a protein. That's why he came to see us. Walked in the door, walked right up to the counter, and leaned on it like a school kid on their bed looking at a new yearbook or something. And he said, "I want a whole pork leg for Christmas." Now, Hamsaw Joe, the juice pig, and I, along with Nashville Davy, all looked at each other with varying degrees of caution and scorn. Joe says, "Listen, man, that's probably going to weigh 18 to 25 pounds, and it's definitely going to have the skin and the foot on." And this guy, let's call him Chad the Tech Jabroni, says, "Bro, that's perfect. I'm going for the full effect." Against our better judgment, we took the order. There was a risky no-deposit policy at this particular shop at this particular time, which definitely bit us in the rump more than once, usually with heritage turkeys, but also with, larger, say, 7-bone rib roast or items that when they get rung up are over $200, and the sticker shock just kind of causes people to turn around and walk out. Anyways, Chad the Tech Jabroni comes back on Christmas Eve to pick up his beautiful acorn-finished, small farm, whole Berkshire hog leg. And guess what? He says, "Wow, Well, that's way too big. There's only 10 of us. God damn it. We knew this was going to happen, and we cautioned him more than once. So I ended up selling him a lamb leg anyways. Now I'm stuck with this full hog leg, as well as several other cuts that won't get used off of whole animals that I could usually sell during a regular week, I mean, what can you do with all that product? You can't sell 400 pounds of sausage over the next 5 days, and the freezer's full. Here's a few gimmies and a few stretches to clear the cooler and get back on track. Maybe a few ways to do some value added. Maybe some clever marketing can move some product quickly. Of course, we're all doing value added and oven ready things throughout the year. It kind of seems like maybe right now would be a good time to brighten up this otherwise kind of dull meal. Cultures around the world that aren't America or Canada have lots of really cool and interesting and delicious New Year's dishes, most of which are not celebrated on December 31st and January 1st. But it wouldn't be a bad idea to introduce something new to your customer base. At this point, everybody's sick as hell of ham, turkey, and roast beef. And I guess maybe like sweet and sour meatballs. So some sort of fresh take is more than welcome, I'd say. So here's just a few value-added ideas. Some international, some interfaithful, and some that are served during the respective group's New Year celebration. Now, these cultures' New Year's will inevitably be spread out during the calendar year. However, it might be fun to bring something fresh, as I stated before. I'm not suggesting this as a blatant use of cultural appropriation, but maybe a fun way to see how special the New Year is to other people. In America, it's less of a celebration of a new season, days getting longer, a hope for good fortune and fresh starts. It's more of a reminder that you can't drink as much as you used to and that you have to go back to school or work soon, really. Let's take a look around the globe and get creative, and maybe we can come up with some new American traditions. The Chinese New Year, aka the Lunar New Year, which generally occurs at the new moon after January 21st and before February 21st, is a huge celebration, one of the largest in the world. My friend Clifford told me that his family eats Chinese New Year food for both the American New Year's Day as well as the Chinese New Year because his dad is Caucasian and his mom is Cantonese. The dishes that he always looks forward to are lion's head meatballs, barbecue pork loin, braised pork feet, and bang bang chicken. He was able to kind of sneak some recipes out of his mom's recipe box and tell me about them. And maybe they'd be of interest to you. Now, just something I wanted to mention. I found that if you maintain a low food cost, say 18 to 22%, you can bring in other ingredients to make your value added, making you more money. Here's a recipe for the lion's head meatballs that I talked about just a moment ago. I've seen them with ground pork only, and I've seen them with pork, lamb, and beef. But there's no reason that this couldn't work for, say, turkey or chicken or some sort of poultry that was served during the holiday that you may be up to your ass in right now. Let's just say for shits and gigs that you're going to start with pork and lamb. So start with 350 grams of ground pork shoulder, 150 grams of ground lamb. You'll get those ground together, and then you'll make your spice kit, which consists of 4 tablespoons of rice wine vinegar or a white wine vinegar if need be, 4 tablespoons of soy sauce, 3 teaspoons of salt, 3 tablespoons of brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of grated ginger, 1/2 cup of minced scallion, 1/2 of a teaspoon of ground star anise, 1/4 of a teaspoon of ground clove, 3 cloves of garlic minced, 3 eggs, 1 cup of breadcrumbs, 2 tablespoons of sesame oil. Basically, you get your spice kit together, wet and dry, and you can just take that and season all of your trim, run it through your grinder, and then make meatballs from there. This is a really great way to get rid of not only pork, lamb, and beef, but also bone broth. If you're in a shop or retail environment where you take all your bones and make bone broth, this is a great way because these meatballs are actually best served after being braised in broth. So really what you're after is searing them on all sides in a pan, adding your broth, putting the lid on, letting it cook, taking it off after about 5 minutes and letting that liquid reduce. And you've got a super great meatball dish with a sauce on top if you reduce the braising liquid all the way down until it's nice and thick and coats the back of the spoon. And then as far as the Bang Bang chicken, your whole body chickens are probably getting past their window of deliciousness at this point. So the first thing I'll do is throw them in an 8% salinity brine. I do 8% salt, 8% brown sugar, and then make a brine. Next, I'd make a small batch of this amazing sauce to go along with the chicken parts. You could sell it in half pints. It goes really well. Giving customers an easy cook method in a sauce is a super hot move because we're kind of in the age of convenience now, and nobody really wants to come up with a meal. So if you can kind of serve it to them on a silver platter, I think they're a lot more likely to buy it and try it. So you've brined your chicken, and now you just have to get this sauce together. It's 1 tablespoon sesame oil, 1 tablespoon brown sugar, 1 teaspoon salt, 5 cloves of garlic minced, 1 tablespoon of minced ginger, 1/2 cup of cilantro, kind of packed in there, 1 teaspoon of allspice, 1 teaspoon of fennel seed, a teaspoon of mustard seed. All of those things spun up in your spice grinder and then made into a paste. You can rub that whole chicken, or you can cut it into parts, and then you can either boil it, steam it, roast it, and then serve it with the sauce. Another dish found when celebrating the New Year are stews. Native Americans ate salmon or venison stew. Scandinavians ate game stew. In North Africa, goat or lamb stew are served for the New Year celebration. They are a fantastic way of moving product that you otherwise couldn't sell during this slow time, such as hams, hocks, shanks, head meat, sausage, fresh leg, all for pork. Then you've got goat or lamb stew, which could be prepared similarly, just fetch a better price based on the cuts. If you have an induction burner in the shop, this is super easy. I start off with a good bone broth, so if you need that, start a day early. Don't forget to add all that goes into the bone broth to the food cost. It's very, very important. For my stew, I like to start by sautéing minced onions, garlic, peppers, and celery. I then deglaze with red wine. Then I take a tomato paste and some tomatoes from the farm here, and I cook it until it's fragrant, thick, and very bright in color. Then I add the stock, cook that down until it's nice and thick, any meat that I plan to include, and fresh herbs. I like to add seasonings and a rind of hard cheese, actually, for richness. Putting in a Parmesan rind into a stew it's so, so good. And it adds kind of a savoriness that you really can't put your finger on. After cooking all day, I add a touch of roux to this to thicken it up. So, you could sell it out of a bowl in the refrigerator case or in pints, half pints, or quarts. It's all about the convenience for the customer. A similar idea to this is a ragu or a sugo, basically an Italian sauce best served with the starch like pasta or polenta or potato. Ham Saw Joe and another one of my coworkers, Poppy Ricci, and I would take 20 minutes in the morning and we bust out like 20 portions of whole wheat cavatelli, which is it's an Italian pasta akin to gnocchi, but it's less than takes a lot less time to make it, and it's also less than 30 cents per portion. Making pasta is basically printing cash. We'd sell 2 3.5 ounce portions of pasta, uncooked or par cooked, and a quart of whatever ragu as a meal for 2 people for $14, and we honestly could not keep it on the case. Couldn't keep it on the shelf. Another ingredient that works super well are charcuterie ends. So you get the butts of speck, finocchione, prosciutto, bresaola, guanciale, whatever it may be. Mince it all up and get that in the saute pan, and you can have an amazing pasta sauce, just how I described. These are just a few ideas that I had. Hopefully this has been fun brainstorming for you guys. It has been for me. In the future, I'd like to propose maybe kind of like a weekly game where we look into our kind of hypothetical walk-in just before delivery day and then figure out some awesome value-added product. For instance, in this case, the game would be all about holiday leftovers. So it'd be a lot like Chopped, really, but there'd be no judgment because each region is different and everyone is their own kind of cook. So, for instance, I've got, let's say, a full beef chuck primal, 2 flank primals, 2 beef shanks, a pork belly, and a leg of lamb that I absolutely must get rid of. What can you all make out of that? What's the best way that you merchandise it? I'd love to hear about it, and as the weeks go on, we can check what people did the week before, and we can propose a new scenario. I think that could be really fun. So, again, New Year's doesn't really have to be the most boring holiday ever. We just need to step our game up with the food a little bit, and hopefully some of these pretty, let's be honest, simple ideas may look really great in your case. I've scooped a lot of sauce into quarts from a large bowl in the case. It caught people's attention. It felt easy to do, and they trusted it. And I think that, especially during this season, playing to people's desires for convenience is really beneficial to small shops. Until next time, Happy New Year, and be safe.
In this last part of the show, I'm going to let you peek behind the curtain and see what it's like when we brainstorm. I've said it in previous episodes, in our bonus episode, that when we are talking, I have the mic on. I always want to capture everything because there may be material there. So here we are brainstorming about what we should do in the upcoming year as far as material. Here's Ryan, David, and myself.
There's the sounds processors and humane handling that came up yesterday. That I don't know if you guys read the article for that, but that's kind of like a rich subject right there. They go into super strong detail about all 3 of the inhumane handling incidences. So anyway, there's that. Then there's the pig face video, which I don't remember what the name of that girl was that posted that. That we have already dialogued about a little bit, but that one's a rich subject with a bunch of different tangents that come off of that one. Then there was management style philosophies, which we kind of touched on today, but there's definitely more that could be said on that. I think I remember there was a question that came up about that a while ago, having to do with what is all your different management style philosophies. Then there's
evolving. It's always evolving.
Always evolving. Then there's 2 other things from the Q&A that you guys did last time, which was cooling carcasses rapidly to avoid sour bone on big bull carcasses. We could talk about that more. We could also talk about longevity of arm health and carpal tunnel and arthritis stuff that come up that came up before. So those was like 5 or 6 things.
Yeah. Someone in that in a recent episode said the reason I want to do an antibiotic episode is someone said I came off pro antibiotics or I downplayed antibiotics. This feedback I got.
I ended up kind of mostly talking about, and in my audio, I felt like a little unfocused. I wasn't feeling very good when I was recording those last night, but I was kind of just talking about how it is that the USDA prevents antibiotic residue from entering the food stream. Mm-hmm. And so I think, I'm looking forward to the episode being out there because I think that people are too sensitive about being realistic with the information that you're giving. Yeah. Like for instance, you just giving facts about antibiotics and then them, just because you weren't like pitchfork and torch anti, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They just assume that you're pro when we're just here trying to talk about reality.
Yeah.
That's it.
People are just scared to kick reality.
It does seem like sometimes a lot of clarifying needs to happen, right? Yeah, sometimes because it's like you'll say one thing and then people extrapolate what your opinion about it from that, and then it's like, oh shit, well, I got to clarify this because people are going to take that and run.
Yes, we are.
Okay, sorry, Ryan.
That's right.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of customers. When I was working in Seattle at the butcher shop, there's a lot of customers that if I gave them real information about how a slaughter floor works, they would consider me to be someone that they didn't like to buy meat from because I wasn't anthropomorphizing enough. I wasn't being sensitive enough and whatnot. But then there's other customers that are gonna appreciate that and trust you because they know that you're a straight shooter.
Yeah, and I've dealt with that too. Like just dealing with people. Like, are people who work on in slaughterhouses, are they consciously aware of the significance of their job? Fuck you, dude. People just need work. And for people to suggest like that they need to have some bigger picture and understand all this like shit. It's like if you feel that strongly about it or you want people to have that, then you should fucking do it. Same vein that like I posted that picture of me holding a 22 to a lamb's head. People freaked out because or one guy freaked out, and it's like, oh, that's disrespectful. That's a subjective opinion that you can't argue. You are projecting your own feelings onto this image. And, I fucking hate that shit.
Yeah, people can't handle the truth, man. Not a lot of people can.
Here's what I suggest. I suggest that someone, maybe one of our listeners, maybe not, develop a business plan for a compassionate and respectful slaughter facility. And the Meat Block would love to, at a reasonable price, consult and help with their very compassionate HACCP plan and maybe help them understand the numbers that they're not going to be able to push through.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And then like people are always surprised too because like I have I'm certified in humane handling through a program developed by Temple Grandin. Like, I could use a fucking cattle prod and still be humane. I just can't put it in the genitals and face. And the udders.
Well, I think that brings up an excellent point. Ryan mentioned the processing deal that's going on, and I don't know if we should say that on the air or not, but
I'll edit their name out. But like I didn't read the article, but if they went into some detail about their humane handling, they're just going off of a report because
that's all public knowledge, right?
Yeah, it's public knowledge. It's kind of like a double-edged sword that it's going to be taken out of contents, and you also want to work with your inspector so you could get wording done right on those NRs. But let's do an episode coming up really soon about humane handling and like what that looks like, and maybe kind of speak about Temple Grandin a bit and kind of go into detail there. Yeah, because it is super important, but it's not this.
And then the other thing is that the reality of misfires.
Yeah, a gun is a mechanical machine developed by man, and same with a wand, and same with the knocker, and they fail. I've had them fail on me, and when you're knocking and stuff like that, you want to do everything you can to ensure, and it's completely on you if you have the improper head restraint. Do everything in your power to contain the animal to make it easier. But shit happens, Yeah. That's why there's races on pencils. People make mistakes.
Yeah, I think this would be a rich one to get into because it's like we got to talk about the realities of this stuff. But at the same time, you guys would have a lot to say about strategies that businesses can employ that will kind of minimize the percentage of fails that happen, or the percentage, because it's like, are we having a misfire every couple thousand head? Or are we having a misfire every 20 head? Or these kind of things you guys could probably speak to a lot about, like what is a good strategy?
Well, I know the numbers you're supposed to have.
Yeah,
And I know
there
how
you go.
many misfires has happened at places I've worked when I was there. And I know how many incidences I've had as a result of me. So, and then
And now, just to be clear, we're talking about acceptable human error. Where like depravity and egregious violence is not acceptable. And
no,
what we're
that's not
talking about.
acceptable by any means.
We're talking about right now. We're talking about the reality of the job and human error and physical error. I mean, I've blown a fuse when using a wand before.
Yeah.
A fuse that's worked 1,000 times before.
Mm-hmm. And that fuse has a lifespan. It is designed to fail. By it failing, it doesn't break your machine.
Yeah.
And so that fuse did what it was supposed to do eventually. That's why they give you 5 of them when you get the machine. Just call this the upcoming, the previews episode. We need to talk about religious slaughter. I was on this Facebook group, and it was fucking disgusting that like posted something that said Muslim or halal not welcome in my country.
Yeah, I saw that. It was disturbing.
And you start reading through the comments, and people are like, what about kosher? What about this? What about this? And they're like, it was very clear that the post had nothing to do with halal, that it had to do with,
no, it didn't.
It had to do with xenophobia, and it had to do with racism.
I hear that shit on my kill floor every single fucking week, man.
Yeah. And I started, and I called out. I called it out. I was like, and I don't like trolling or any shit like that. But like, it's just like, this is damaging. This makes our industry look bad when you're that close-minded. Use your fucking facts. 90% of halal slaughtering now does a concussed or stunning method before the bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
So by you saying no halal in my country, 90% of that, if you're saying you're not okay with it because they slit the throat because it's barbaric, but 90% of those animals have the exact same knocking that non-halal animals do. If you eat lamb from New Zealand, almost 100% of it's done halal because it makes they give it more marketing. They could sell it to different regions. They may not advertise it as that, but it's still knocked. It still has a stun, and it's still blood. But we need to have a whole...
Yeah.
We're going to, yeah.
Because that shit pissed me off so much. And like, I know we don't live in a world where everyone's going to be best friends and everything's going to be hunky-dory and all that shit. But we don't want to actively alienate people and then disguise it as something else.
No, absolutely not.
Just call it what it is. Say, if you don't want Muslims in your country, just fucking own up to it. If we want to be an alt-right racist piece of shit, just be it.
What else? What other topics you got, Ryan? We're coming up on.
I find, and this goes back to that pig face video with that girl, but I find the subject of respect and people's ideas on respect, I find that a fascinating subject because at one hand, we were just talking about the realities and the truth that kind of goes along with this industry and killing animals. And we also talk about like how shocking that is to people who don't know these realities. And then you get all these different people's perspectives about respect lines. So, and I think it's a moving target because everyone has different ideas of what a proper respect line is. But when you posted that video of the holding the 22 on that lamb's head, right? And the word respect came up where someone said that's not respectful.
Yeah.
And so this is like, it's a super kind of like, the subject is really interesting to me. What is respectful, what isn't respectful, but more so like, why did someone think that was disrespectful?
Yeah.
And then other kind of, as people,
So I used to always argue this when people talk about respect. One, you're projecting your feelings, your own personal beliefs onto the animal. And it's because the animal has a face that is considered disrespectful or whatever. Like the animal was not suffered or anything like that with me posting that literally right before I took the shot. Go to my Instagram and see it. It's me holding a 22 right before I killed a lamb. And if I didn't shoot the lamb and I processed it. It would have been a lot worse. But respect is subjective. That it is, you can't argue something and you can't make someone feel something that they have a subjective opinion on.
Yeah.
I think In-N-Out is the best hamburger in the fucking world. People will tell me what a burger is. I will argue to the T why In-N-Out is, and they may argue to the T, but again, it is a subjective personal belief that
you're I don't know, man. That's borderline, because In-N-Out really is the best.
It is.
Burger
It is. It's so good. But like, so in the past, I have boned out a pig's head, and I've never put one on my head, but I have had coworkers, when I wasn't in the position I am, put a skinned out pig's head on their head. That one video we saw was done in a taunting way to provoke a reaction from vegan extremists for self promotion. That was my problem with it. As far as I posted this me cutting steaks blindfolded, and someone said, "Oh, that's disrespectful to the animal because you're blindfolded." And I said, "How is that disrespectful to the animal?" "Well, you're not showing your full attention to it." And I'm like, my belief is, if I were to jerk off on my leather couch, I don't find that disrespectful to the animal that gave its life for me to have that leather couch.
Totally. This is a rich subject. Someone might say that a bandsaw is disrespectful and you got to use a mallet and a cleaver or something like that. I remember back to years ago, people I worked with, they would look at pictures of just a bunch of primals stacked on a table. Like, oh, look at the work we got to do today, right? Oh, a whole bunch of primals stacked on this table. And they would say, man, that is so disrespectful, right? That image is so disrespectful. And I just think back to that, because it's like my world now is every day lots of primals stacked on a table, and I don't see it as disrespectful. This is just the workflow. This is production. And yeah, that word disrespect, very subjective, like you said.
Yeah, that like, hello?
Oh, go ahead.
That if, like say someone who finds a carcass cooler disrespectful, and I know, but to me, it's the exact same thing. Like, if you have a problem with this, what's it going to be like when you go into like a store and you see a bunch of belts hanging there? It's the same thing, in my opinion. It's like dead animal parts.
Well, yeah, and also another thing is, it's like you got horror movies. It was that movie a few years ago. I think Rob Zombie did a movie that was quite gory, and there was another one, The Hills Have Eyes. That was quite graphic at the time, and people really complained about how it was awful and how people shouldn't be doing that and how it's just over the line. But you watch the fucking movie.
Yeah, then don't go to it.
Then don't go to this Instagram. Again, we don't support egregious violence or anything along those lines. But if it's everyday part of the job and you don't like it, then don't frequent that page.
And people also have this whole idea of like, I need to be heard. These people need to know how I feel. I really don't. I could give two shits less. But
maybe we could make this episode kind of involve what you're talking about right now. It could be about like the idea of respect, but also maybe how social media is changing that.
Yeah, true.
Solid.
And I told that guy, I just said, thanks for material for my podcast.
Yeah.
What other things do we have before we end up? My Harrison's here.
And my special birthday surprise is starting pretty soon, so I'm gonna maybe we could talk. You could give us a couple more topics, then I might sign off.
Okay,
you guys could wrap it up.
I think that's all I got for now.
Here, let me see. Facebook page had something that I wanted to talk about.
Oh, could you restate the production processor production topic?
I'd like to have this is a topic that I'm gonna hopefully be talking about in the future. We'll come back to that some other time. Anyways, I'd like to talk about the generally tumultuous relationship and distrusting relationship oftentimes between producers and processors. have a lot of producer friends that have difficulties with their processors, and a lot of processors that have difficulties with producers. And I think those conversations oftentimes stay among our own kind.
Yeah.
And
I've never met someone who is happy with what they get.
Right. Yeah, totally. And I
we're not stealing your meat. You just have a shitty yield.
Yeah. Exactly. And I'd really like to talk about that topic, like the yield off a carcass and what you can actually get. I'd like to talk about that relationship between the two entities and what we can possibly do. Because if I truly feel as if the processors and the producers could get together and we could have a better, more cooperative dialogue, we could all be making more money. I truly feel that way.
Yeah. And it's all got to be about what's realistic.
I'd like to talk about that.
And just like,
yep.
And then one last thing is someone's, Michael, the guy who posted online, he said he wants to know more about Outlaw Country.
Oh,
sweet!
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Are we gonna do an Outlaw Country music episode?
Yes, we are. We're only going to talk about Outlaw Country.
That's great, and I'm dying to hear everybody's thoughts on David Allen Coe at that when we get to that.
I've seen him live.
I don't even know that guy.
Travis, I think you better lay some David Allen Coe on Ryan before he goes home today.
Yeah. Well, that one line, Johnny Cash helped me get out of prison. So David Allen Coe, just real quick history lesson, went to prison for armed robbery. Ended up being someone tried to make love with him through an act of violence, and he killed that person. And then Johnny Cash, the line, Johnny Cash helped me get out of prison, Johnny Cash paid for his lawyer.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa.
tried to make love to him through an act of violence.
Well said. Well put.
Yeah. But David Allen Coe, let's not cover his X-rated stuff.
No. All right, thanks, guys. I'm gonna start working on these new topics, and then we're this upcoming Saturday.
Well, I woke up early Sunday morning. I had myself a piece of toast, had $50.
All right, meatheads. That's going to do it for this New Year's episode of the Meat Block Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. And I just want to say thank you so much for supporting the show. 2017, whatever it was for you, was a great year for me in the sense of my career, in the sense that I was able to build this podcast. I'm very excited about the community we're building. And I just want you to know that this podcast is more yours than it is mine. I would not be able to do it if it wasn't for the listeners. And if you want to get a hold of us, the best way to do that is Ryan is at Gather and Break on Instagram. David is at A Farm Butcher on Instagram. I am at American Butcher on Instagram and Facebook. We also have a Facebook page where there's a lot of great conversation happening over there. It's the Meat Block. I want it to be an open group where people could ask questions and not feel like they're going to get ostracized. And because no one knows everything, but as a community, we are much stronger if we help each other out. And if you want to support the show, the best way to do that is by using the hashtag #TheMeatBlock or by tagging us on Instagram at @TheMeatBlock. Also, if you opened up the Apple Podcast app, left a comment, and left a 5-star review, that would be so helpful to us. You have no idea. It helps put us in the algorithm to let more people know about the show. This song is New Year's on the Border by Charlie Robertson. All acquaintance be forgotten, all hail Zion. I'll see you, or you'll hear me, in 2018. Keep your knife sharp and live in the margin. Happy New Year.
Well, I know a girl here in Laredo. Her name's Pussy Willow Rose. She got that ring around the collar, got that ring stuck through her nose. She works there at the Dallas Cowboys. She's got no in between like all them other boys in dresses. They ain't every cowboy's dream. It's New Year's Day here on the border, and it's always been this way. I never do the things I oughter. I think I'll stay. It's New Year's Day. It's New Year's Day here on the border, and it's always been this way.